Hello, and welcome back to Therapist Plays Disco Elysium. So, on today's episode, I have a bit of a mental breakdown for being so precisely and humiliatingly called out by the game. We're still trying to pass time to finish off our Cold Momadakwa thought. And so we're going to read some Man from Hjelmdall. And we're going to take another look at some of the cases in Harry's ledger. And I'll just say, one of them pokes fun at something that I can kind of relate to. So I hope you enjoy that. All right, with that said, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome back. All right, so we still have a little bit of time to pass before this is finished up. And the game's tooltip told me that if I need to pass the time, I should read a book. Which is good knowledge for this game and good knowledge for life. So let's read a book.
The display rack is brimming with worn paperbacks featuring an extremely muscular, sword-wielding barbarian on
Like
the
that?
cover. Nearly all the titles contain the word Hjelmdall somewhere.
This is my way of connecting with Kuno. Is I'm gonna try to build propinquity with him by learning about one of his interests.
This is entirely, completely you. You have found the right books.
That's right. This is man stuff. I want to buy Man from Hjelmdall and the Devil Woman. This may run the risk of traumatizing Harry, though, because he does have some some trauma related to like his perception of women. Like, we've been doing a lot of work to repair that, but I fear that this may lead to some confirmation bias for him. Like, he already has a negative perception of like women are there to destroy my masculinity because that's what happened to me. We fall in love with them, and then they hold our little hearts in their hands, and then they play with them for a while, and then they crush them, and they squeeze them like pulp. That may be what he's feeling. Accurate or not, or justified or not, but it may be what he's feeling. And I'm curious if this contains any of that.
It is a bestseller for a reason.
Oh, that's discouraging. That means a lot of people are getting into this. Okay, let's figure it out. Let's find out. The frontispiece of this old paperback features a muscle man in chains, kneeling before a salacious-looking woman on a regal seat. A bonfire lies between the throne and the man, casting shadows on the wall, and the shadow of the vixen's headdress looks like a pair of demonic horns. Okay.
The edges of the pages are worn and smudged. A lot of people have read about the Devil Woman's altercations with the Hjelmdall man.
Let's take a look at that back cover.
The jacket copy proclaims, Man from Hjelmdall returns in his most exciting adventure yet. After crashing into a strange jungle, cannibalistic natives abduct his only surviving comrade, Noble Tyribald.
Oh, shit!
Before Man from Hjelmdall can mount a rescue, he is ambushed by a tribe of female warriors and taken to the ancient citadel of Cloud City, where a mysterious and wicked queen rules supreme. Will Man from Hjelmdall be able to escape his dire situation and find his missing friend?
Let's find out. Let's give the book a flip through.
You open the book to a random page. Man from Hjelmdall, wielding his two Zweihammers, is carving through a sea of savages, his visage fixed in grim determination.
Of course he has two Zweihanders.
His arms, whirling like windmills, are soaked with the blood of his enemies. Mangled corpses litter the battlefield.
Oh, jeez. Okay, this could go one of two ways. The Devil Woman is just a incel-like characterization of like women bad, and he has to defeat them with like his his masculinity. Or, and this is a long shot, there's a chance that like Man from Hjelmdall is like a brilliant sort of satire, like Starship Troopers, where some of its popularity comes from people completely missing the point and thinking that like the militarization and jingoism is like cool. Like there's a chance that this is like quite self-aware of how stupid this is and how fragile the masculine ego on representation here is with this dual Zweihanders. And it's also it's not lost on me that Harry is literally like he's pretending to have his dual Zweihanders. I just realized that. Holy shit. It's so perfect. I did not plan this at all. But Harry literally, we've been walking around with our like fucking display ceremony saber. and a similarly funny named large object, the Kvalsund. Oh my god, that's actually so perfect. Holy shit. Harry is gonna love this. I wonder if he will get it though. I'm really curious. Let's see which direction this takes. If it's like brilliant satire, that's fucking, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
Good God, this is some retrograde stuff. When was this shit written?
Probably recently.
You flip to the copyright page. This book was written in 38.
Okay. I don't know what day it is today. So, oh shit. Gritty and heroic.
Berserker rage burns in his azure-hued eyes as he brings glory and honor to his long-lost Hjelmdall tribe. From the village of Hjelmdall, the ivory giant roars like an ice bear, and the winds of Gatla howl out his name.
Give me more!
Man from Hjelmdall rides on a gilded griffin, his golden mane billowing in the breeze. Both Zweihanders sheathed on his back.
Of course!
He is off to war. Will he conquer his enemies? Will he conquer himself?
Onward! I'm reading this with my two Zweihanders sheathed.
The steel muscles of man from Hjelmdall gleam in the humid jungle air. Yet the man does not sweat.
He doesn't
In
sweat!
meditation, his soul drifts in the frigid northlands. He calls home.
Holy shit, this is so me! Let's really get into the book. This is lining up so fucking perfectly with the roleplay that I've been doing. That's unbelievable. Literally, the Harry I've been developing is like so primed to receive this book at this exact moment and to be totally sold by it.
A passage reads, "The man from Hjelmdall looks up, his eyes blue as the mountain lakes of his homeland. He rarely speaks, but now his voice booms in the darkened throne room. Do not try to sap my masculine essence, wicked temptress. Son of Hjelmdall will never succumb to your seductive wiles."
Okay, this is the turning point. Is this straight shooting incel garbage, or is it actually brilliant satire?
Thine spells are no match for purity and strength of will. Brothers of Hjelmdall, stand above the vices of flesh, for it is weak and corruptible, yet mine is forged in gore and strife. Queen Lydiana just laughs, a sultry and salacious sound, then says,
Okay.
"I have grand plans for you, man from Hjelmdall." She gestures her diabolical hand toward an array of potions and unguents. "First, you shall please me. Then lead my armies against the vicious cannibals. Not a muscle moves in the face of the man from Hjelmdall. Yet inside, there is turmoil. This goes against all he holds sacrosanct."
Okay. She will manipulate our, she'll take our strength and use it against us with her seductive ways. Wow, this is epic.
In the final pages, man from Hjelmdall mounts Gallavarin, his mighty griffin, and turns his gaze to the horizon. Queen Lydiana is dead, but an army of cannibals is storming the gates, and still there's no word of trusty Tyribald.
Okay, so he killed her? He killed the queen?
To find out what happens next, you'll have to pick up
Oh,
Man
what?
from Hjelmdall and the Three-Eyed Skull, available in fine bookstores everywhere. Spring 39.
What? A cliffhanger. What an anticlimactic ending. Well, is there more? Is there another text?
The display rack. This is entirely, completely you. You
Did I
have
already do
found
this?
the
Oh yes, certainly. Another good sale.
I mean, I guess I gave that book to Kuno. Did I do that already? Is this a different book? A classic. On the frontispiece, an anatomically unrealistic muscle man is reaching into a mountain stream, yearning to touch his glimmering mirror image. His eyes are full of childlike wonder. On the blood-soaked snow, right next to him, lie two giant Zweihänders. Oh, this is like the... Okay, this is the origin story.
The cover of this tattered paperback features the man from Hjelmdall standing atop a pile of bloody corpses. His two Zweihänders are crossed over his massive chest in a dramatic X, their blades dripping with gore.
Hell yeah.
Behind him rise the harsh, snow-capped peaks of his native Northlands. In bold red letters, the title, Hjelmdaller Man, the man from Hjelmdall, unfurls like a banner. In the foreground, a nearly nude woman lies spread in supplication.
Of course.
Her privates strategically covered by her flowing black hair. These images speak to something burbling deep within you. Quick, find someone or something that needs to be gutted, beheaded, impaled on a spike.
Harry, he's being emotionally radicalized, not just to, like, relieve sexual tension, but to go commit violent acts. Interesting. Let's look at the back.
Blurb reads, his latest adventure serves as the perfect introduction to the savage Hjelmdall saga. Meet man from Hjelmdall, his faithful blood brother, Tyribald, the noble Lord Hrothgar, and some of their most fearsome foes yet, for the Northlands, for Hjelmdall.
Let's take a peek inside.
The story opens in media res. The man from Hjelmdall and his band of northern reavers are in the bowels of an ancient temple, surrounded by an army of gibbering whites, led by the deathless necromancer. One by one, the brave Northmen fall to the relentless crush of undead, only to join their number as reanimated corpses.
Okay.
By nightfall, only the man from Hjelmdall and his blood brother, noble Tyribald, are left standing against the dead horde. It is an honor to die by your side, brother, Tyribald cries, as his battle axe beheads one of their reanimated comrades.
Wow, they're in trouble now. This is also bringing out, like, Harry's sort of what I suspect to be a bit of, like, stunted maturity development. Like, I mean, we've seen this show up in a couple of ways. The struggle with authority figures and being one himself. In our role play, his, like, need to connect with, like, the youth, right? In a sort of like I can't address the issues of my own childhood, so I sort of like find an outlet in the youth around me to try to make their experiences better. The sort of like projection we probably see in Kuno as like an alt history Harry who never found his way into the police world. Let's get into it.
9, Tyribald, the man from Hjelmdall, bellows over the army of flesh and bone. Have courage for the Northlands, for Hjelmdall. He leaps to the mezzanine to face the black-eyed figure, and like a mad ice bear, whirling twin Zweihänders, Sturm and Drang, he plows through the ranks of the deathless, surrounding the necromancer.
Okay.
The writer has never held a sword in their life, let alone two two-handed swords at the same time.
I love that he's deduced that. Of course he hasn't. You can't dual wield a Zweihander.
It is physically impossible for a human being to effectively dual-wield Zweihander swords in any kind of real-life combat situation.
Okay, Harry's mind is giving him a little bit of, actually... You're ruining the fucking suspension of disbelief, though. Let me get into the fiction here. Can I have a voice chime in and tell these two fucking dweebs to fuck off?
And with deadly finesse, his twin blades scissor the necromancer's body. The undead legions collapse.
He scissors them
as the dark magic leaves them, and the two Northmen stand alone in their cursed temple, where the bodies of their lost brothers litter the floors.
I also love the idea that we're like, okay, skip ahead. I am really enjoying this, but I don't really have the patience to actually read it. I kind of just want to hear about fucking zombies getting their heads cut off and salacious, seductive queens bowing to our masculinity.
A few chapters later, the man from Hjelmdall and Tyribald are in a completely different setting, high above an arid desert, riding a pair of griffins that always seem to appear at narratively convenient moments. The Northmen find themselves in the court of a powerful southern king, Lord Hrothgar. The old king beseeches the man from Hjelmdall to rid his kingdom of the Nachtherra, a subterranean clan of blind wizards who traded their souls for demonic powers.
Okay.
The man from Hjelmdall extracts a high price from the desperate king. He asks land for the homeless desert pygmies living exiled in the kingdom's borderlands. Hrothgar offers the hand of his eldest daughter instead, but the son of winter does not budge.
Why is the man of Hjelmdall doing any of this? Let's inspect his motives here.
What do you mean?
Why is he doing all this?
Because the flame of justice burns bright within his chest. Because, above all, he's driven to bring honor to the name of his beloved Hjelmdall. Because his noble Cutland blood lusts for glory and conquest. It cannot be denied.
Is that all?
What do you mean, is that all?
Is there anything else to his character?
He is the man from Hjelmdall, forged in the fury of battle. Death was his sire, and blood his dam. He had but 14 winters when he left his frigid homelands in Cutla to seek glory and honor. That is his character.
Okay, so it's sort of shattering my hopes that there was a satire layer to this. All right, whatever. Let's get to the good part. Whose head does he cut off?
You skip past a section detailing an elaborate...
Skip.
As well as the long and perilous journey from Hrothgar's keep to the ancient forest of Hjesdal, where our heroes infiltrate the Nachtherra's dire hall.
Boring! Who does he fight?
In the center of the great hall stands a blood altar on which a pair of Nachtherra are disemboweling a shrieking peasant, an unholy rite that empowers the Nachtherra forbidden magic.
Yes. Okay, now we're getting to the good part.
As the vile ceremony ends, the sound of steel unsheathing draws the Nachtherra's attention to a pair of cloaked figures standing in the doorway.
Fucking let's go. One Zweihander for each of them.
This is what you came for, isn't it? A dramatic bloodletting where men are reduced to muscle and fury.
Thank you, Half-Lights, for coming in and validating me instead of insulting my intelligence by intrusively clarifying that nothing in this story makes any sense and questioning why the man from Hjelmdall needs a deeper character. I've come here as a simple man looking for a simple story, okay? Not all this other bullshit.
Swiftly, the visitors toss off their cloaks and unsheathe glimmering northern steel. It's the man from Hjelmdall and his valiant blood brother,
what?
Tyribald.
I did not see that coming.
In an instant, the Nachtherra summon a horde of gibbering orcanoids who rush our heroes. The hall fills with the clang of blades and the screams of the dying as the floor goes slick with steaming orcanoid viscera.
That's right.
When the din of battle settles, only the man from Hjelmdall and Tyribald remain standing, exhausted and dripping with the entrails of their foes. the two Northmen confront the foul Nectera. The man from Hjelmdall's soda-like blue eyes fill with indescribable fury. For the Northlands, he cries, rushing headlong into a desperate melee.
Cut him up, Hjelmdall man! Look, I actually don't think that this is maybe as toxic as it... I mean, there's nothing wrong with having like a guilty pleasure outlet either, you know? I certainly do not only stick to like sources of fiction that are sort of cerebral and intellectually stimulating. Like maybe I used to be. There was a time where I was like, I like good film and only read like good stuff, and I've just abandoned all that shit, honestly. Like I also enjoy a lot of schlock, and I know it's not good. I don't care. I don't know. I guess my tastes on like entertainment have changed. Where I used to have the idea that like the media that I enjoyed like said something about my personality, which I think is encouraged on a society level. Like it's where we get all this like, I don't know, fandom wars and culture wars, and there's so much strong association between what you like enjoy and what that says about you. And it's not that there's like that's totally invalid. Obviously, if you have certain like emotional or political leanings, like the material that you engage seriously with may be things that validate those perspectives, or maybe if you're very discerning, you look for things that challenge those perspectives. This game has certainly challenged a lot of my political perspectives. Mostly just demanding that I refine them from a sort of like vague vibes-based feeling about what I think, and realizing that trying to communicate like the depth of the game without trying to engage in those made me look kind of dumb in the early parts of this playthrough, and maybe still to this day. I don't know. But it's asked me to sort of refine some of those views and understand what I'm engaging with a little more specifically. So I enjoy that. I like finding media that actually makes me reconsider some of what I believe. And I used to think that everything I did needed to be like a statement about my personality. I only watch films that are intellectual and existential. I only read books that, you know, elevate the mind and all this stuff. But I also found that like that just made me really annoying and opinionated, because if something didn't meet like what was a very narrow standard, I thought it was terrible. And I have like totally abandoned that perspective, because it meant I enjoyed a lot less stuff. I've talked about negative filtering before. I'm pretty sure I talked about it recently in this show, but yeah, it used to be a big problem of mine. Oh, I talked about it in the last episode. What am I saying? I don't know. My memory is terrible. But yeah, that used to be like kind of how I engaged with things. Was I don't know. I did not realize that it is a very valuable skill to be able to enjoy things that are not super excellent. Because I would play games that like 99% of I was in love with, and then like 1% of it I was like, oh, this is terrible, and I would sort of besmirch the whole thing. System Shock 2 was a game like that for me some time ago, where I felt like the writing of that game was so excellent and so self-serious, but in a good way. Like it understood what it was going for and wasn't like trying to be comical. And then the ending of that game just abandons all of that, and it has to do with like the situation and the development, and they just kind of pieced something together. But the tone just rapidly shifts in a very sort of off-putting way. And for a long time I was like, this game is terrible because of that. And so I just like, I don't know, over time in my own maturity development, I've realized that like you really limit your ability and your scope to enjoy things when you're so particular about stuff like that. and so exclusionary. Yeah, I think it's just like, as an overall composition, that one thing doesn't really ruin the 12 or so hours of good experience I had before that. I mean, the ending of things is very important for my enjoyment of them, of course, but yeah, I don't know. I just have like tried to update my perspective to like, not everything needs to be a fucking masterpiece, because otherwise you don't really enjoy much. In fact, like I find myself gravitating more towards like things that are not so expected high quality. Like when I discover a game or a film and I'm like, "Ooh, this has amazing critical reception." It removes some of the fun of like developing my own opinion and expectations about it, because it kind of does like create some expectation for you of like, oh, well, maybe if I don't like this, maybe what am I missing? Because so many people do. It's just like something that kind of enters my mind. Whereas like when lots of people are like, this thing sucks, and I get into it, I'm like, hang on a second. This thing fucking owns to me. It's more enjoyable because then I'm not thinking about like, oh, what's wrong with me or what am I missing? But I'm like, oh, what am I seeing in this that's unique to me? And so like one of my favorite pieces of media ever, I think, is like basically somewhat mediocre. It's a show called Person of Interest, which I do recommend, actually. It's very good, but it's also like pretty cheesy and not very good at lots of things. The writing is not always on point, but when it is, it really hits. And I would never recommend it to someone and say it's the best thing ever. But it was kind of like, yeah, around that point where I was like, oh, if my standards are a little more fluid, I can sort of like carve out the gem of this thing and really enjoy it. Whereas like someone who kind of brushes off at the beginning of a show like that, where it maybe doesn't capture them right away, because it really does. It's one of these, it gets better as it goes on sort of things. And I get that. It's hard to get invested in things that take a while to pay off. But I don't know, I just have found that I'm more able to enjoy schlock for those moments where there's a gem, where there's like, just like a really good fucking part of it. I've also stopped caring so much about like whether the plot of something makes sense or is good. I used to allow my enjoyment of something to be very structural. Like if there was like something missing in the plot, or something like, yeah, I don't know, a Deus Ex Machina happened, like griffins suddenly showing up, it would like harm my enjoyment of the story. And my priorities have really shifted, where I'm less entertained by like structural storytelling and more like, is there a good emotional payoff? I care so much more about that. And if the plot is fucking wonky, if the way that we get there takes some weird turns and some stuff doesn't line up, but you can get me to feel something at the end, I don't really care what you did up until that point, honestly. I'm starting to realize that sort of payoff has become more valuable to me over time. So it's just interesting, you know, like, I don't want to characterize this as people who may read something like this are clearly incels. Maybe there's some greater appeal to a demographic like that, if you want an outlet that just validates your like perspective. But all this is to say, it's possible, and I think it's actually a skill to learn to enjoy things that are like kind of substandard. All that said, cut him up, Hjelmdall man. I'm into it.
He probably is, but you can't be sure, because this one ends in a cliffhanger. And a footnote saying, to be continued in Hjelmdall man at the gates of tomorrow. Coming soon to your local bookstore.
That's bullshit.
Considering the sheer amount of different Hjelmdall man books out there, it's very unlikely you're ever gonna find the sequel.
Are you just here to make my day miserable, Logic? That's all you've been doing so far.
The man from Hjelmdall stares at you on the cover, his face fixed in grim resolve.
All right. I'll put it away. I guess that's all the Hjelmdall man we're going to be able to read. How fucking close are we? God damn, there's still so much to do. Okay. What else? I don't know. Is there anything else we can read? I may just do a time skip, honestly. Like, this could take a while. And I may not have that much interesting to say in the meantime. So perhaps I will just see you when this is done.
It's the ledger you found in the trash. It takes about half an hour to piece one together, using the system you've devised. Which one do you want?
Oh, okay. Well, this will pass some time. I guess let's check out the unsolvable case. Well, it takes half an hour. We need 3 hours, so this is 1 hour, 2 hours. Okay, it's gonna take a while.
AKA Leslie and Burke, AKA the public indecency drunk and the property damage drunk, is a cursed case. It has been passed from unsuspecting officer to unsuspecting officer for 10 years. On January 29, the unsolvable case made its way to you. Why you accepted it, it is unclear. Every officer, and indeed most civilians in Jamrock, know it's unsolvable.
Maybe we have something to prove.
You were so drunk, you didn't remember what it was when you signed on. That, or you were high.
Okay, maybe we didn't have a good reason at all.
Leslie will always take his pants off when he's drunk. Burke will always trash everything. It's just what they do. It is their nature. You cannot change the nature of a man, and you can't lock them away because public indecency and small-scale property damage are not punishable by incarceration.
You can't change the nature of a man. Who is that coming from? That's what this game is about!
The only way for Leslie to stop displaying his genitals and for Burke to stop attacking things would be for them to stop drinking alcohol, which in their 40s or 50s, it's hard to tell because of their distorted features, is a medical improbability.
Okay. Can we just keep them off the streets?
You would think that, but you're wrong. Where's the fun in exposing your genitals or breaking stuff in your own home? No, Leslie and Burke are on the corner of Main Street and Perdition because that's where the action is.
Okay.
Can you keep yourself off the streets?
You're really, really invested in making me more sad today, Logic. It's starting to get depressing.
Threatening, fines, dragging them to the station, locking them up in the hellholes they live in, locking them up in the station, hypnotherapy, even trying to get the local gang of Zemyaki to take them out. The Zemyaki gave them ethanol so Burke and Leslie would expose and rampage even harder. You tried it all, and still the complaints wouldn't stop, as they hadn't stopped for 10 years. It's plain to see from the files that you, Satellite Officer JV, and Special Consultant TH had more important cases to attend to. You uncover cross-reference to several ongoing investigations, each brought to a standstill every time you drive down Main Street. Because there they are, on the corner of Perdition. And what is Leslie doing?
Public indecency.
Good, you're learning. If the files are to be trusted, that's all there is to it. That and Burke breaking things, and the fact that they're both drunk. But then again, so are you. The case becomes considerably less comic one day when Burke takes a swing at your ledger. He must have it confused with the property he likes to damage. But the joke's on him. The officer is also drunk. Way more drunk than Burke there. And let's be fair, you also have party eyes. You slam the hardened plastic board in his face, then proceed to beat him unconscious with it.
Holy shit. Harry. You are a Hjelmdall man.
In the process, the ledger sustains damage. The compartment within, reserved for permeable documents,
That's how it got jammed.
Shut. You stop your assault on the now unconscious Burke to open it, but are unable to do so. The officer began to cry, reports Leslie, who, at this point, is tending to Burke.
Man, Harry really was ripping shit up.
Kill them. They broke it. He came at us, and at us. I think he was trying to kill Burko. While trying to kill Burko, you slowly come around. The permeables compartment is open. You've smashed it open on poor Burko's kneecaps. The good news is, Burke can't walk anymore.
You got to imagine what Harry's going through as he's reading this. It's quite thematic to the perspective of recovery, that both from like a 12-step AA sort of perspective and a therapy perspective, you're looking at who the person was in addiction and many of their past actions, and trying to identify like some of the character defects that need to be addressed. But in both cases, right, like from my perspective, when I'm working with someone who is talking about like things that they have done that whether they remember doing it or not, they're aware of. Like if Harry was the Harry that we see today, who's worked a lot on himself, and he was coming into his next session with Brady, the therapist, and he said, I read this report about myself that I like basically almost killed someone, severely injured them to the point where they can't walk anymore. And if he felt some sort of remorse about that, how might we go about working through that? Well, part of the like unprocessed guilt is, like I said, the 12-step approach to recovery is often like there's a person you need to make amends to, and it may be appropriate to do so and it may not. My understanding is that the idea is if it's like more intrusive to re-enter this person's life, like if we fucked up Burke so bad that he never wants to see us again, then it would be very selfish for us to go and say, hey, I want to make amends to you. Like maybe he just wants fucking nothing to do with us ever again. Which is kind of the situation we're in with the ex-wife. Like we probably have done so much damage in that relationship that even though we want to apologize, it's not appropriate to. It's appropriate to leave her alone. If it's more intrusive to re-enter their life, then you need to make the amends silently and through living action, not necessarily as a direct communication with the person. So 12-step is very action-oriented in that way. Therapy is a lot more about processing, and I might do like more of an empty chair type of thing with this. I might ask a question like, and what do you think about the person you were reading about, that Harry in that ledger? Well, he seems like a real asshole, right? Do you connect with some of the actions that you took? No, I don't even remember them. In fact, I was so drunk, but I'm horrified by what I'm reading. How do you know that you're horrified by those things? Well, because I wouldn't do that now, right? I'm trying to be a better person now. And how would you have handled this differently now? Well, and then I might have him explain that, right? So the point of this kind of dialogue, therapeutically, is when people get stuck ruminating on the past, especially their past mistakes, they don't usually arrive to those parts of the dialogue where they say things like, but I'm trying to be a better person. Here's how I would have done things differently. Like most of the time when we're ruminating, let's say it's about an ex relationship of yours and you're thinking about like, this went wrong and I can't believe that happened and this makes me sad and I wish this was different. Like that's what the mind tends to do, and we kind of get stuck in that loop. That dialogue, those questions that I ask are specifically to progress those storylines from where they naturally start, like, I can't believe I did that, that's so bad, I wish this had happened differently, and get to that point where we're also making commitments to change, which we just don't tend to naturally do all the time when we're like in an anxiety loop of like, I wish I would have treated her better, and if only I had known this. We just don't arrive to those, my next relationship's going to be different. Here's how I'm going to treat someone better. We're trying to provoke that dialogue through therapeutic conversation. because then we start to realize the divide between our present self and this past self. So this is a very person-centered kind of approach. It's not so much about like therapeutic intervention or using any sort of technique. It's mostly just like dialogue to guide them towards more positive self-talk and to state their potential for change. We just don't really do that in our minds.
Can't get out of his apartment, an invalid. With Burke to tend to, Leslie cuts back on the indecent exposure. Maybe he flashes his genitals to Burke. Who knows? But both drunks are off the street. The complaints stop. The unsolvable case is solved. Which is also why the officer responsible narrowly escapes a disciplinary hearing. The end. Do you want to read another one?
Okay, so we basically got away with that too. I mean, I'm only imagining Harry reading something like that and being like horrified by what he did. That's just my roleplay of the character, right? We've been doing a lot of work to... We're a long way away from trying to hit Kuno in the back of the whirling, because that's where we started. That's the character we just read about. Like, if I were to ask Harry now, what do you think about what you tried to do to Kuno? I imagine who we've been developing him as would say something similar. I can't believe I did that. That's not the right thing to do. You're trying to have the person revisit these things intentionally so that they can notice the difference that they've made. Which is not going to solve any problem. It's not going to unbreak Burke's legs. It's not going to absolve you of any guilt. But it is a little bit of like, I guess you could say it also kind of falls into like ACT, which is like acceptance commitment therapy, which is kind of just about like radically moving forward with change and action rather than like being stuck in the past. Let's check out another one. Or how close are we? Ooh, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right. The Square Bullet Hole Murders.
It would be very interesting to read about these, wouldn't it? I mean, there seems to be a square-shaped entry wound in the victim's forehead.
That is strange.
She's been sitting there for weeks, on her rocking chair, with a square hole in her skull, staring at the wall, her mouth agape.
But?
That's all you got. From the half hour you spent piecing it together, all you know is the entry wound was square-shaped. You never found the bullet. And then another body showed up, also with a square hole in his forehead.
A sequence killer. It's interesting that they use this term. This is like the precursor to serial killer. This is like what it originally was going to be called.
Who knows? Those pages are missing. What next?
It's kind of old school vibes. A sequence killer.
Don't worry. One day.
Okay, I guess we can't investigate that one further. Let's check out the couch in an unexpected location.
Some assholes brought their couch outside and hung out on it. In the middle of the street, on the roof, on the hillside by the motorway. You know, at an unexpected location. They were young, and they thought they looked cool on it.
Oh, man. Now I'm feeling called out. I have this photo of me and some friends on a couch in the middle of the street. Doing exactly this. I mean, it was me and my buddy. We were, he wanted to get a couch for his dorm room. This is when we were in college. And this is in the Netherlands, and we didn't have cars. And mostly you get everywhere on the cycle, but you can't. The Dutch will find a way to put a fucking couch on a cycle, I'm sure, or multiple cycles. But like we didn't have those kind of resources. And he wanted to get a couch for his dorm, but it was probably like, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 6, maybe more kilometers from where we were living, that he was like, I purchased a couch from someone, and will you help me go get it? And so we tried to do that. We tried very hard to do that. The two of us were just not Hjelmdall man-like enough to carry the couch all the way, all at once. We probably made it like halfway there. We probably made it like halfway before we just got tired. But because we were just lugging it around, we had to constantly like sit it down and rest. And so we would sit on the couch. But like, yeah, every couple of meters, I guess we would be having the couch like on the sidewalk, just like in the way of everything. Because we just needed to kind of cool off before we tried it again. And we eventually gave up. We actually couldn't get it all the way there. We had to call like 3 or 4 other people to help us. But it was a fun time. Like, you know, they brought us out drinks, and we just kind of chilled on the couch by the canal. And yes, we were young and we thought we looked very cool. So we took a photo of it. It's a good memory. But I imagine that anyone looking from their own roof or out the window had this exact thought. Some assholes were hanging out on their couch in the middle of the street in an unexpected location. I mean, we weren't doing it intentionally. We're trying to move it. But yeah. Anyways, just kind of reminded me like that. Yeah, they actually looked like assholes.
Insufferable dicks. Young people are the worst. So anyway, you got a complaint about the damn sofa or couch or whatever it is.
Yeah, that tracks.
They were leaving it out in all these unexpected and whimsical locations. They took it to where they also took photos of themselves on it.
No!
And smoked cigarettes.
No!
And drank coffee because they felt it's intellectual.
No! Oh my god, I feel so called out. God damn it.
Cigarette butts, coffee cups, stupid cups. You had to clean it all up. And you did. So congratulations to you. Case solved.
Did I ever catch those guys? Those assholes on their fucking couch?
No, you didn't have time for that. These notes show that you have what is called a real goddamn job. You don't have time to be chasing down couch assholes. You have a real job to do. What next?
All right, let's move on. I feel so called out. Murder at the hookah parlor.
Murder. Tum at the hookah parlor was a case originally assigned to an officer called Joseph Mills, who is now dead.
Of course.
Of circumstances completely unconnected to murder at the hookah parlor.
How?
Beaten to death by a throng of Villalobos gang members when him and his partner JM, only initials mentioned, answered a call one night. It's a sad story, and it isn't really represented in your case files. Stop stalling and get to the murder at the hookah parlor.
Okay, on with the murder.
Joseph Mills was on this case that he just couldn't solve. Was doing it solo. Said it was a real nutcracker, a real brain twister. Was on it for, like, a month. The captain got impatient. Shit or get off the pot, Mills. Mills didn't get off the pot. Not yet. He kept at it for a couple of weeks more, racking his brains, running with every theory, as outlandish as they seemed. Still couldn't solve the murder at the hookah parlor. Tough case, he said. Toughest he's ever had.
Okay. Was Mills a good cop?
No, he was awful.
Oh.
Awful sense of humor, too. The worst jokes you've ever heard.
Oh.
Really rapey. Still, he'd been on it for months now. Said it was the final case. Said it was uncrackable. That murderer vanished into thin air. That goddamn hookah parlor was all he talked about.
Go on.
Okay, so the case is handed to you because Mills isn't getting anywhere, and you look into it. Here's the setup. A young man is found dead in a hookah parlor. You know, those places where you go and smoke bubblegum-flavored vapor all day.
Really stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, young man in his 20s found with his skull busted open, right on the floor of the hookah parlor, in the middle of the day. No one else is in there, only client that day. In perfect health, too. Some kind of movie producer. No one enters, no one exits. He's just sucking on his watermelon hookah all morning, all noon, like he usually does. He's a regular. No calls, nothing. Just sucking on the hookah until 15:45. Then bam, he's dead on the floor with his skull busted open, blood everywhere. What happened? How can it be?
That's a good question. I don't know. Did he fucking clock himself?
Mills has no idea. Invisible assassin. Movie deal gone sour. Girl at the counter did it. Nothing fits. Eerie. Man just dropped dead. So you go to the parlor. You see cushions around the table. Tables low, heavy, really sharp edge.
He sucked hookah, stood up, passed out, hit his head on the table and died.
See? You can't even read the thing without solving it. Yeah, it was that. Turns out hookah does do something. It turns off your brain's oxygen supply, and you don't notice it until you get up to go to the bathroom.
What was he doing there for 6 hours?
Smoking hookah. Didn't you hear? I don't know. Trying to come up with a movie script, maybe. Anyway, that was Murder at the Hookah Parlor. Joseph Mills wasn't a good detective, and about 30 minutes has passed piecing it together. Next.
Interesting. So Harry's either like just a damn good cop.
Not much has changed in the meanwhile.
Or everyone around him's a fucking idiot. Or maybe a little bit of both. It's kind of fascinating. Oh, come on. Come on. We're so close. What else can we do? Is there anything else to read? I already read all the stuff up there. Annette, do you have a book?
Hi, Ace Detective. Are you here?
No. Do we have any books in our inventory? Board game. Reading about
Cockatoo is
cockatoos?
a parrot. This book talks about the delicate nature of twos as this,
We already read about all this stuff.
perhaps in the words of poet, perhaps the most in the words of poet explorer Sir James Fournier.
Oh, here we go.
Few
Yes!
called the Mama Dakwa.
Yes! I have literally been waiting
It's not
so
only
long.
your eardrums that register sound anymore. Your very skin has become an organ of hearing. Looking for a whisper light and low. A god who's very, very silent. Nothing escapes you. A cockroach in the other room. A candy wrapper falling on dry grass. A drunk falling from a chair in a bar 20 meters away. In fact, you haven't heard the Col du Mama Dakwa, but you have discovered that you have amazing hearing. It must be the only part of you the alcohol hasn't drowned out. Keep listening.
Okay. Well, it's actually perfectly fitting then that it has to do with hearing, because that's what we're going to go use this perception bonus for, is to solve the case with Suna. All right. Well, I'm going to top up on my mag here and then make my way to Suna. And then we're back in. We're back in to the end game. That's the last thing that we really need to do before the we go look for Ruby.
A small cabinet on the wall is filled with various medicine bottles, nasal sprays, and blister packs. They all bear the Saint Baptiste Pharmaceutics logo.
I guess we'll get some of this.
Okay, here. I hope Saint Baptiste makes you feel better or something.
Okay. All right, we're topped up on our on our mag here. Thank you again, Fritta Girl. You are basically holding this whole world together at this point. And hopefully we solve all of your problems by the end of this storyline. Okay. I'm going to transfer myself to the church. And when we reconvene, it will be time to start the end of this long-running series. And Let's just
Yes.
check.
What is it?
Okay, 72%. I'll just tell you right away. I do not fucking care if I don't pass it. I'm save scumming it. This series needs to move on. There's nothing else I can do besides do that. So, and we'll probably also check this thing out as well. Okay, I will see you for that next time. Thank you for watching. And what sort of like mid-tier show, game, movie, book, series do you enjoy that you know isn't really like amazing, but why do you enjoy it anyways? That's what I want to know. So let me know. I will see you again soon for the next one. Take care.